friends. He was in college campus. He was in university, and he had friends that did not make the journey with him. Friends that were not really did not become religious, and he knew that the statements of Pirkei Avot were very inspiring, and he thought they would be very helpful to his friends to become religious. So this Jewish man in Israel who became religious said, "How am I going to get my friends to want to listen to the words, good morning, Nathan, of Pirkei Avot?" So he said he did a little trick. What was his trick? He took a Pirkei Avot, he covered up the cover, so his friends will not know. Well, good to see you, Nathan. Will not know that it's a Pirkei Avot.
Good morning.
And good morning, Ronnie. Ronnie, I apologize that I have to send you that.
Oh,
That
it's okay.
if you don't mind, give me a text. I'll reach out to the person who takes care of the tech.
Rabbi, I don't want to interrupt you, but I meaning in the class right now, but I think it's on YouTube, correct?
Yes, but
I'll find it.
see if he posted it yet. That's all. Check it
Okay,
out.
okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm focused now. Let's go.
Okay, great. So he said he made believe. We're talking about Pirkei Avot. So this non-religious Jew who became religious wanted to inspire his college friends to become religious. So what he did was he said, if I'm going to teach them Pirkei Avot, they're not going to want to listen. They're not religious. They're not going to hear me tell them Pirkei Avot. He made believe. He took the Pirkei Avot. He covered it up. Made believe he was reading from the all-time greats of philosophers. And he says, Plato says this, and Socrates says this, you know, and he would say, oh, the defense for wisdom is being silent. And and he would say, different statements about and all different statements of Pirkei Avot. And he says, Confucius said that after the end, and then everybody was so inspired. And everyone said, wow, it's amazing. And then at the end, he takes off the cover and says, guys, this is Pirkei Avot. So this is our holy Torah, and he was trying to make a point, hopefully inspire them to come on board, see the beauty, the greatness of religion. And sometimes people don't want to walk into the store. Got to get them in the store. You get them in the store, right? So you get them in the store. Okay, we're gonna get Ralph. Okay, okay. You welcome, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, it's great to have you back. Okay, we are on 18a. We're now, as you know, we were talking about starting, that we had in the Mishnah about are you allowed to start certain types of activities before Shabbat, and that activity will continue on Shabbat, whether that was permitted or not permitted. That was a discussion that we had in the Mishnah. So now the Gemara on 18a2 is going to continue that, elaborate more on that discussion. 18a2 on the bottom first column. Okay. Tana Rabbanan. Potkin mayim legina. A person is allowed to open up a water channel, not a YouTube channel. We're not talking about a YouTube channel. We're talking about a water channel in order to go ahead before Shabbat. Let's say you had this channel, this line running from the spring to your garden, the canal, we call it a canal, and you opening it up, you open up this thing, let's say you cut into the floodgate or whatever, however you want, however you made it. The Rashi says you make this canal from the edge of the Mayan, from the edge of the fountain to the garden. So you went ahead and you opened it up, and now what happens is you did it before Shabbat, im chashecha, late Friday afternoon, umetmamelet veolechet kol hayom kulo, and this water is flowing into your garden, watering your garden. Now we know on Shabbat, we'll see. We know on Shabbat if a person himself would water his plants on Shabbat. The people need to, obviously, watering plants is forbidden on Shabbat. You can't water your plants on Shabbat because you are violating the prohibition of Zareah, of sowing. It's part of, it's like it's from connected to the malacha, the act of sowing, planting on Shabbat. That would be the prohibition of watering on Shabbat. But he's not watering it on Shabbat. When is he opening it up? Before Shabbat. So the Mishnah states, not the Mishnah, the Braita states, and our good friend Nathan says this is the opinion of Beit Hillel, because Beit Shammai, based on what we had earlier, Beit Shammai would say your utensils have to rest. And good morning, Adam, good to see you. And your utensils have to rest, according to Beit Shammai, and therefore utensils are doing a malacha on Shabbat, because your utensils are, now the question would be, is your utensil doing a malacha here? Because if you just open up a mayan, if you just open up that the water is flowing, so maybe there's no utensil doing a malacha. So maybe even Beit Shammai might hold it's allowed over here in this circumstance, because the utensil there's no utensil here necessarily doing anything. It's not like the hose, which is actually a utensil. This is good morning, Ralph. Ralph was back. Look at that. It's more like a it's more, depending if it's a utensil or not, but there's no utensil here. So, but in brighter states, you can go ahead and, so to speak, open up this canal that could run on Shabbat, but you're watering your garden, but what you did was before Shabbat. You didn't do anything on Shabbat, but the malacha, the act of the work related item is happening on Shabbat. It's happening not directly from me. I'm not directly doing it. It's happening as a result of what I did before Shabbat. So Beit Hillel said, it's fine. I'm not doing anything on Shabbat. Okay. Umanichin mugmar tachat hatkelim erev Shabbat. I could take besamim. I could take spices, and I put the spices on top of coals, on top of the coals, which is underneath, and there is I have garments above. So I have the garments above. I got the coals and the spices on the. I want to perfume the garments. I want to perfume the garments. So how do I perfume the garments? Put the spices on the coals over here. The smoke goes up, and the perfume, that smell will go into the garments above. And I'm allowed to do that before Shabbat. And the whole Shabbat, it's happening. My garments are being smoked. My garments are being improved. It would be, I can't do that on Shabbat. I wouldn't be able to do this type of activity of improving my garments and making them a different type of, completing the garments in this fashion on Shabbat. But I did it, my activity was done before Shabbat. I did not do anything on Shabbat. You open the air conditioner before Shabbat, right? So what's happening on Shabbat? The machine is running, right? But I got the machine running before Shabbat. I'm not doing anything on Shabbat. I put on the air conditioner before Shabbat, right? So that would be a similar idea, even though it would be, if I would actually, what's happening is electricity, things are moving, things are happening, things are in motion, but what I did was I didn't do that on Shabbat. Adam, right? I did everything before Shabbat. Another case, the Gemara says, Umenichin gofrid tachat hakelim. Here, I want to go ahead. I have sulfur, yes. So what is the story over here? I have utensils, but these utensils are not garments. These are like silver items, and I want to beautify. Morning, Adam. Good to see you. I want to beautify the silver items the way Rashi explain and give certain color, certain black. I want to blacken the pictures that I made in the silver. What sounds like this. To remind everyone to make sure to say Birkat HaTorah before we start learning. You scrape out certain, let's say Rashi gives it flowers. You want to make a flower. right? So you in the silver, you scrape, you take it, you scrape certain pictures, a form of a flower, and then when the sulfur, when you make this, put the sulfur on top of the on the fire, and and then the smoke that comes up, it becomes darkened. That's the spots that you had scraped out. Now it becomes filled in with this with the smoke, and it darkens it, and it forms this image of the pictures that you indented into the silver. So they were sophisticated back then too. Not everybody, people think people who aren't sophisticated, back then. I mean, you look at the building of the Mishkan, unbelievable piece of artwork. So you could go ahead and place this burning sulfur under the silver utensils, and they'll continue. Simon is back. Simon, I was thinking of you. Okay, I got to think of Mashiach more, but I was thinking of you. That when is Simon coming? We're supposed to think of Mashiach every day, and we're looking for the Mashiach to come. We welcome Simon. It's from the Holy Land. Got to come back to the Holy Land. So you could go ahead, and they call it sulfur. You continue to be, and the utensils could be sulfurated. That sulfur was going on utensils the whole Shabbat, and filling in the spaces of the scrapings. Um, and the way they write over here, the silver is sulfurated in order to blacken and thereby highlight the designs that were etched into it. That was the purpose of sulfurating. But it's even more than over the whole. It's actually improving, fixing, enhancing the item, which right, it sounds like a makabapatish to me, completing an item, filling in the design, and that would be prohibited on Shabbat itself. But here, I started the process before Shabbat, and I could go ahead and do that. Now we know that there are certain things that might be a problem because of marit ayin. That means if it looks like I did it on Shabbat, that would be a problem, because then people might think I did this. I'm doing malacha. I did an act on Shabbat. So right. So obviously we're talking about a situation. Good morning, Asaf. This is the norm that done in advance, and people will not suspect. It's not something that people will suspect that it was done on necessarily on that moment, on that day, on that Shabbat. So right here, it doesn't say any opinion. Doesn't say a machloket over here. We'll see. We'll have to stay tuned for the Gemara. The Gemara will identify who's the author of this Braita, and so on, so forth. So the Gemara continues. Now, if a person has some sort of bandage with medication, let's see the next case. Umenichin kilor al gabe ha'ayin. You could go ahead and put the kilor al gabe ha'ayin. It's some sort. The kilor is some sort of medicine that that's in the bandage of some sort on top of the eye. Vispalinit. Or you could put a certain type of dressing on a wound. Erev Shabbat im chashecha. And the fact is, the eye or the wound is being healed the entire day because of the medication and the whatever you have in this bandage. And as long as you did it before Shabbat, meaning the certain regarding healing on Shabbat, the rabbis created certain gezerah that if you take medicine on Shabbat, we're afraid if you apply medication on Shabbat, we're afraid you're going to actually make the medicine on Shabbat. You might go ahead and grind the spices, the herbs, to make the medicine. And the rabbis created certain fence, and therefore they said, only we take medication on Shabbat. If a person is an infection, they take medication. If a person is bedridden, But in general, if a person has something light that's nothing really, no big deal, they don't take, they avoid the medication on Shabbat because of they made a gzera. They were concerned that people shouldn't come to make the medicine directly on Shabbat. What do you say? There's still today, there's laws of refu on Shabbat that if a person has something light, that's nothing really major, it's not, they avoid, we will not avoid taking the medicine on Shabbat. Yeah, if it affects your whole body, if something affects the whole body, you could take the medication. If you're bedridden, you could take the medication. But if you have an infection, you could take the medication. But something that's really nothing really, we could take the Shulchan Aruch, we could take out the Siman.
Even like if you wake up with a headache, you can't have that.
Let's take a look at the language of the Shulchan Aruch regarding medication on Shabbat. So let's take a look over here regarding refuah and Shabbat. Let's see if we find it right away. Okay, maybe on Monday we'll find it a little faster, but you're gonna grind it. You're gonna make if what I recall, if you're bedridden, you can take it. If it affects your whole body, you can take it. If it's an infection, you can take it. Those three circumstances. Affecting your study should not be enough of a reason to go ahead and hit. Right, that should not be a reason. We have a siman. Siman Shin Chavchet. Let's see what it says. Siman Shin Chavchet in Hilchot Shabbat. I'm not making, Rabotai, I am not making this up. Okay. I know for some people you might be thinking, Rabbi, where did you come up with this, Rabbi? We never heard of this thing. Okay. Okay, allergy might affect your whole body. It might knock you out. You know what I'm saying? So that's different than a person. Here, when we give you the case of the Shulchan Aruch, Simishin Chavches, Mi sheyish lo michush ba'alma. You have something bothers you a little bit. Something bothers you a little bit. Now, a discomfort. I like that translation. Very good. And you're able to walk like a healthy person. You walk like everybody else, but something's bothering you. You have a discomfort. You're not allowed to do any medical thing for such a person who just has a little discomfort. Even if I'm doing it through a non-Jew. Okay, okay, very good. So good. So Simon. So now the Chafetz Chaim is going to elaborate a little bit to address Simon's point. What is this? Let's identify what does this mean. What is the reason? It is a protection. Mishum shchikat samamonim. That we don't want you to actually grind the herbs. That is one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat. You're not allowed to grind. Can't take an herb, right? Grind it. You can't take a vegetable and go ahead and I want to grind it. Right, but still, we can't. But you still can't. Okay, we'll see. We'll have to look more in the laws of grinding. That's another. We'll take a look at the topic of grinding. But you should know on Shabbat, people so you have to grinding is one of the melachot on Shabbat, and what we do with vegetables on Shabbat is we go ahead and we don't cut it, we don't dice it so small. I mean, again, halachically, you're gonna look into it. We're gonna look into it more. But what we do in practice is we're careful when we cut vegetables on Shabbat. We don't cut it like to the smallest the dice is so small. We keep it a little, we keep it larger than the normal way you would than dicing it. You're gonna look into it. We're gonna learn about. That's what we're learning. We're learning Masechta Shabbat because we need to review but we can't take the vegetable. At least again, I can tell you at least the Ashkenaz. We can look in for the Sfardim, but I don't know if there's any difference. We'll see. But the Ashkenazim do not dice vegetables on Shabbat. Okay, we're By the way, there is one Torah for Sfardim Ashkenazim, but you get my response. But there might be certain laws that the Sfardim have different understanding of it. But basically, we don't cut the vegetables. We don't dice it to the smallest. Yes, what do you want to say? Hey, everybody reads grinding. Something you can't grind the vegetable Shabbat. Okay, so we'll you know what? Maybe in honor of Saul, next week we'll look at the laws more of grinding on Shabbat, but the laws. Okay, so now then the next sif in Shulchan Aruch says, if someone has a holy shel sakana, someone's dangerous. Okay, we're going to get to the Chavetz Chaim for Simon in a minute. Someone has a danger of a sickness of danger. Mitzvah lachal. There's a mitzvah to desecrate the Shabbat, right, David? To help the person who is in danger. Now comes the Chavetz Chaim, and he says like this: if you have a great discomfort, great pain, and your whole body is affected by it, your whole body is sick because it's not like my finger bothers me. It's not my finger. My whole body is affected by it. No. The concern is we're afraid. You might create the medication. Listen, in the old days, be a little make believe. Yeah, exactly. Oh, so that's the problem. Tell them to put into the applesauce and not to grind it. It'll go down good without grinding it. Okay, but the Chavetz Chaim says if he is in great pain and his whole body is affected by it, or what, like a hangover, or I wonder with allergies, you might feel you might be not. Is it the whole body? People have allergies. The whole body, you feel your whole week. If you're bedridden as a result of it. Yeah. So if you right again, he said even if there's no infection, if you have to go ahead and any infection, you can take medication. The rabbis did not place this gzeira, this fence, in a situation when there's a infection. But that's a doctor prescribes. That depends what type of medication the doctor is prescribing. If it's right, but if a guy needs a blood pressure medication, a guy needs anything that's serious, that's called a danger. The person doesn't have his blood pressure medication. That person has a diabetic issue. Right. So vitamin depends on certain things. Why is he taking the vitamin? If he has taken it just to heal, if it just to keep strong, then it's not a medication. So it's not a problem. If you're taking the vitamin, that's what I would understand. If you're taking the vitamin as to heal something, then maybe getting it to and it's not a real issue. You know what I'm saying? Using for healing purpose, but you're not bedridden as a result of it. It doesn't bother your whole body. So keeping you healthy shouldn't be a problem because it's not that you're sick and you're taking it as medication. You're strengthening. You got a more avenue. What do you call it? You got D vitamin, and you're just taking that just not because you're sick. You just want to keep strengthening yourself. That should actually be different. Then it's not a medication, but we'll see more about the vitamins. We'll look more into the vitamins. Right.
someone who doesn't have a stroke, but has a condition that is to be prevented.
Right, so again, so that should, we will look into it more, but the logic would be, if it's not if it's not using it to heal, just preventive, so it's not a medication.
Don't take it as the stroke comes.
I know preventive.
Again, preventive is okay first, and also anyways, if it's also, if it's preventing from anything dangerous, so that's like he's saving from sakana. So anyways, your case, Nathan, if he's taking the aspirin to prevent stroke, so that's an effect that's worse than an infection. There's no problem taking the aspirin. Say it again. That is a biblical. Right. So even though today we're not generally, maybe we're not the farmers out there. Ralph, we're city boys, right? We're city boys, but they didn't. The rabbis did not remove. We don't. They do. They didn't remove. They didn't remove this. The Shulchan Aruch, the Chafetz Chaim. They no one. They don't say that has changed regarding this law. So he says again, if the whole body is affected, or if he's bedridden, even if there is no danger, okay, got it? Danger, there's no question. Take the medication. But even if a person is not a danger, but if he's bedridden, if he needs this to prevent him from being bedridden, or he's bedridden, or it affects the whole body, he could go ahead and take the medication. What is that? Right? But so if someone's head is hurting him, according to it would seem that I would not be able to take the medication for the head unless I know that if I won't take the medication, I'm going to have to lay down. If you know that you're going to have to lay down, take the medication, because if it's that type of headache, you take the medication. Exactly, it's more lenient. Exactly, the rabbis they gave a lot of room for situations of people, right?
Medication versus, I guess, like what we call it, supplements or things.
Vitamins.
Because the process to make them seems like the risk
Is the same.
I think probably, I mean, I'm just guess, I think probably because a medication is something that you would go out of your way compared to for an acute situation or something preventive. Let's say you ran out of vitamins, you're not necessarily going to like go and like buy more vitamins today. Like you know what I mean? You're not gonna go and get more vitamins today. Because you're out.
you don't know
But-
the discomfort is where the risk comes from. So you're like, I gotta get rid of this.
Exactly. That's a good motivator.
Could be. That's a good idea. Also, person has the right to eat food, right? We're not gonna say don't eat food because they might come to grind it. Right, I'm saying. Right, so if you look at it as food, so therefore it never entered in the medical issue.
Might not be defense up.
But there's no.
What?
It
It might depend if you're living upstate in the country, or it might be if you're a farmer. It might be if you're those people that are that you have all the vegetables, you have all the herbs, and now you might come to maybe here in the city here, David, we won't have that issue.
Complicated medication, though. There's no worrying about.
Right, okay, but it would seem, but they didn't remove the because there are people that would.
We're on track to remove it, but we have to see if we make it another 100 or so years in this. We might end up back in the woods again, in which case it'd be good we never got rid of it.
I didn't like that.
But hopefully we're
We're
still.
covering all their bases.
Yeah, we've been trying to run.
Takes out our
Exactly.
and we all have to go back to nature. You might have it. Never said we really have it.
If we're sure we're here to stay, then I can understand.
Listen, we're looking. We know we're looking. We're going to Mashiach to come. We're going to go to Eretz Israel, and then, by the way, when Mashiach comes, then you could have a court, then maybe the court in the time of Mashiach, maybe will have to convene the Sanhedrin if they feel and if they're greater than previous court or whatever it might be, they can make, if they want to make a ruling to remove this enactment, then maybe we can have removal of, we'll have such a court in the future, they might have the power to remove such things. So maybe in the future, if this will not be a concern of the grinding, so maybe in the future the rabbis might go ahead and remove when Mashiach comes. Looking forward to that, and they might come to remove this. Okay, so that is a little bit. So I think we educated ourselves a certain amount about refuah on Shabbat. So getting back to our Gemara, and that's what the Gemara is talking about regarding the refuah. Now, so the Gemara says, and there's also, if you look at note number 22 over here regarding the refuah over here, because there's certain things about on Shabbat, there's something called memachik. Let's say if you have a skin of an animal, and you're making the skin, you want to make it usable, and you would smooth out the skin. And that's also something on Shabbat, one of the melachot on Shabbat. And there's also concern with some of this medication. In this particular case, look at number 22. You got it? We're going to read note number 20. The rabbis banned the performance of most non-essential, that's another good word, Nathan, right? Non-essential medical procedures on the Shabbat as a precautionary measure. One should not perform the malach of tochen, of grinding. That's what we said until now. In preparing medical powders, the medical powders. Applying a thick eye salve or thick dressing on the Shabbat involves another issue. The vision of applying materials that one might smooth out, thereby performing the malacha of mamachek. We'll see more about, as we learn, about the smoothing out of certain materials, and there was also an issue which we posed by the medical. But if you put this on before Shabbat, and so now you could go ahead and you're allowed to, once you did this before Shabbat, so the rabbi said, and it's doing its job, you can leave it there. You're allowed to put it on right before Shabbat. There's no problem. Now, so the Gemara says, you cannot put wheat into a mechaim shalmayim, a water mill, which is going to grind the wheat. So you put it in. You started like the water mill is grind. It's going to be grinding the wheat, but you put it in the wheat before Shabbat. You didn't put it in on Shabbat. The act of grinding is happening on Shabbat, but I did not put it in on Shabbat. If I would put the wheat into the one on Shabbat, then I that's me, right? Just like if I put a pot with meat in on a stove on Shabbat, and it cooks, I violated cooking because I put water in a tea kettle and on a fire on Shabbat. I cooked up I made the water. I boiled the water, right? So too, if I go ahead and I put the wheat into the mill and it grinds on Shabbat, I am violating the malacha of grinding on Shabbat. But here, the story was I didn't put it in before Shabbat. It's grinding on Shabbat, but who's doing the grinding? The water mill is doing the grinding. I'm not doing the grinding. It's not me. What? So if you say it's a utensil, but Beit Hillel says your utensils do not have to rest on Shabbat. Your air conditioner could run on Shabbat. Your refrigerator could run on Shabbat. I am not doing it. I did not put it on Shabbat. So what's the problem with this water mill? Why can't I do it? So this opinion says you can't do it. There's a question in the Gemara. What's wrong with this water? Why is the water thing different than having that hose running with the whole Shabbat or that water thing that's running to that water canal that's running to my garden. Why is this different? So the Gemara says, "My time, huh? What's the reason?" Amarabba v'nei shemashma'at kol. It makes noise. We spoke about the noise issue. The fact that it's making noise on Shabbat, that the grinding is going on Shabbat, so that is not respectful for Shabbat. So here, it's not a issue of grinding. That's not the concern. Everything I did was before Shabbat, right, Mr. Haber? But what's the issue here? That I am doing, the Shabbat is not being respected. How is it not being respected? All the noise going on. Now, we spoke about the fact that if a guy has a dryer on before Shabbat, you have to close off the dryer before Shabbat. So we said that the Ashkenazim are more sensitive to this idea of coal, of noise, and we say you should close the dryer before Shabbat, making noise. The Sfardim, I think, they're not, we're going to see. See, there's no letter on this. There's no letter that says, identifies this as the halacha, and I don't think the Sfardim are concerned so much for the sound. Yes. Right. So it would sound like basically it was prepared before Shabbat. I didn't do anything on Shabbat. No one's going to think that I put on the sprinkler system on Shabbat, because the normal way is that it's done and then it's continuous. So it sounds like it shouldn't be a problem based on everything that we said here in the Gemara. There shouldn't be a concern. I'm not doing anything. No one. It's very little noise. I think the sprinkler makes. That's considered not respectful for the Shabbat. Now, there are those that say that Rashi, we explained that it's a concern of respect for the Shabbat. However, there are those that say that it's not just a concern of respect for Shabbat, that if it makes noise on Shabbat, people might suspect that you actually did this on Shabbat. It's a marat ayin problem. See, there's two in the commentaries. What's the problem with the mill running on Shabbat making noise? So people, either it's because it's not respectful for Shabbat, that's how some explain, and some explain because people might suspect you that you are adding wheat on Shabbat to grind. So that would be the other possibility that why there's a problem over here with the watermill. Amalei Rabbi Yosef l'Rabbah. Rabbi Yosef says to Rabbah, why don't you say, like Ralph was saying, that the watermill should be a problem, mishum shvit kelim, that your utensils have to rest. Meaning, according to we know about Beis Shammai is of that opinion, but he says, we have a drash, we have a statement in a breakdown, the Tanya. He was under the impression, this Rabbi Yosef seems to hold at this point of the Gemara that your utensils rest applies. Everybody should hold of this idea. The Tanya will have a breakdown. It says 6 days you should do work, 7th day you should rest. Your animals need to rest on Shabbat. You can't have your animals working for you on Shabbat. The person has a slave. The slave is not allowed to work on Shabbat. And then it says, Ubachol Ashamati. Everything that I told you, you should guard, you should guard, you should observe. What is Ubachol? The Rabot Shvitat Kelim? That even your utensils have to rest on Shabbat. You can't have your utensils working for you on Shabbat. The Rabot Shvitat Kelim? So being that's the case, now again, we said, this is Beis Shammai. But at this point, we don't have a name Beis Shammai on this. So it sounds like this is a universal opinion. So therefore, Elam Rabbi Yosef says, Mishum Shutat Kelim. You know what the problem with the watermill is? Because that watermill that's running, that's grinding on Shabbat, your utensils working for you on Shabbat. You can't have so according to this, your air conditioner can't be on Shabbat. According to this opinion, even though you put it on before Shabbat, because your utensil is working for you on Shabbat. Of course, we know you can have your air conditioner on before Shabbat and running on Shabbat as long as you put it on for Shabbat. We'll continue A beautiful crowd, everybody. We look forward Monday. If everyone brings one person, we'll double the crowd. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. And we welcome back Adam and Simon. Welcome from the Holy Land. Simon, you've been on my mind. I was wondering, when is Simon coming back? Have a great day, Ronnie and Emmanuel.
Thank you, Rabbi.